One of the keys to a contractor's ability to conduct business is defined by his bonding capacity. In other words, his ability to have a surety provide payment and performance bonds for him. And all of that centers around the general indemnity agreement that's executed between a contractor and the surety. This establishes the basic relationship in that the surety will consider writing bonds for the contractor, and the contractor agrees to indemnify the surety, which means that if the surety has to pay money on the contractor's behalf to an owner or others, the contractor would have to pay them back. And once the general indemnity agreement has been established, the surety would agree to consider writing a variety of different bonds for the contractor, and generally on a project basis, based on their confidence in the contractor's ability. So the first step is, if a contractor is considering a new project, is that there be some sort of application or some way for the contractor to let the surety know what is the type of project, what is the scale of the project, and what is the tentative cost of the project. And based on that information, then the surety would decide if they are willing to underwrite the contractor's bonds for the project. Typically, for most projects that require bonds, the first type that would be written is a bid bond. If an owner accepts a contractor's price and counts on that price to secure funding or to make commitments, then the bid bond is a type of leverage for the owner in case an issue arises with the low bidder that requires he go to another. A fundamental issue with the bid bond is that as construction projects have gotten more and more expensive, the face value of the bid bond has less and less of an impact on the owner's ability to cover any substantial costs going to another bidder. In many cases, the bid bond's face value is either expressed as a percentage or as a fixed value of money, but typically whichever one of these is less. So as you can imagine then, that for a building project that's particularly expensive, an owner has little protection through a bid bond of, say, $10,000, which is a fairly negligible amount compared to the overall cost of the project. But in any event, it is a situation where the contractor provides the bid bond, and it's not so much related to the face value that's at risk. It's really about the contractor's overall bonding capacity and the relationship between the contractor and the surety. Now, if the contractor is successful in being awarded the project, and if the owner requires the execution of the project to be bonded, then there are two types of bonds that typically would then be written. So we'll kind of extend the bracket here. The first one of these is the payment bond. And basically, the purpose of the payment bond is that if the contractor, regardless of how well he completes the work, if he does not make payments to material suppliers or subcontractors or others, then the surety is obligated to the owner to make sure that those payments are made. And what this is relative to is the lien process, because even if the work is completed, if a subcontractor or material man isn't paid, then that mechanic or entity has a right to file a lien on the real property, which could result in a situation where there's no clear title to the real estate until he's paid. The second type of bond that would be provided by the successful contractor is a performance bond. And the performance bond simply is relative to whether or not the contractor completes the scope of work. In other words, the scope as defined by the contract, which would include the drawings, specifications, and other contractual components. And basically, the bond says that the surety is obligated to the owner to provide the completion of the scope of work if the contractor does not. Now, even though these are two separate bonds, two separate instruments that are executed by both the general contractor and the surety, they are almost always issued in tandem in commercial construction work.